What's going on, everyone? So welcome to my latest video. This is part of a series where I focus on Academy Award Best Picture nominees from a certain year and then rank them from worst to best. Done such years in the past, such as the 1990s, the 2000s, 2010s, 2020s, and then currently I am working my way through the 1980s. I've done 1980, 81, 82, 83, 84, 85, 86, and you clicked on this video, so you know it. This time around I'm doing the 1987 Academy Award Best Picture nominees and ranking them from worst to best. Now, there were 5 Best Picture nominees this year, so I'll be ranking them from 5 being the worst to 1 being the best, and of course, my humble opinion. And per usual, it goes without say, but I must say it on every time. Keep in mind, my opinion of this ranking will be different from yours, and I will be looking forward to seeing your ranking in the comment section down below. But guys, enough exposition. Let's get started. So kicking things off, number 5, we have Hope and Glory. This was a very hard movie to find, and I'm not going to lie, that's something that every now and then I come across, where there's a certain Academy Award Best Picture nominee that it's hard to find. This was a movie that I had to go through other means to try to find, and I managed to find it on a certain site. This movie, I understand why it's so hard to find, but I am going to say this right now. I don't think it should be hard to find because it is an Academy Award Best Picture nominee. And I can definitely see this being one of those movies that a lot of people really liked at its time. And also, I'm sure that there will be people now that like it. For me, I felt quite mixed about it. It's pretty forgettable. Like, as soon as I finished watching, I was like, I need to quickly write my review on Letterboxd because my memory of this movie is quickly dissipating. So, yeah, it's a pretty forgettable movie for me. But again, I understand why it got nominated. And at the same time, I also see why many people might like this movie. But for me, it was the least liked for me. But yeah, that was my number 5. Next up, we have my number 4, which is Broadcast News. This is a movie I was so close to blind buying the Criterion Blu-ray a year or so ago. And I'm glad that I didn't blind buy it because I thought this movie was just okay. It's very well acted. I do like the chemistry between all the actors. I think that they're clearly having a lot of fun, and the scriptwriters also are clearly having a lot of fun. But for me, I wasn't really taking part in that fun, if you know what I mean. It was a very passive experience. Like, watching it, I was just kind of like, okay, whatever. But again, it's an okay movie for me, but I also really do understand the appeal for this movie. But it's a shame that I feel this way. Like, I really wanted to like this movie because I love movies that focus on like broadcasting or like journalism, things on those nature. Really, I gravitate towards. So I was disappointed the fact that I thought this movie was just okay, but I would still say watch it. It's worth it. Again, the performances alone are worth your time, and yeah, it's my number 4. Next up, my number 3, we have Moonstruck. This is a movie that I've been putting off for years and years and years. And the reason simply is just that I looked at it, I was like, okay, it's a romantic comedy. And as a teenager, I just wrote it off as such. I was like, okay, it's a romantic comedy, so I didn't really have that much interest. But over the years, my interest for it grew and grew. And then, of course, I wanted to do this video. So I was like, okay, this is a good chance for me to finally sit down and watch Moonstruck. And I'm glad that I watched it because I really enjoyed this movie. I thought the romance and the comedy worked really well. Nicolas Cage gave a really good performance. Very much so enjoyed him. He is the highlight of this movie for me. And yeah, it's a very enjoyable film. I can see why it got a Best Picture nomination. And yeah, definitely worth your time. That's why it's my number 3. Next up, we get into the nitty-gritty top 2. So my number 2, we have Fatal Attraction. This was a huge success when it first came out. It was a box office smash with critics and audiences, and I think that it's aged really, really well. The moral dilemma at the center of this premise is something that to this day has held up, in that you understand both viewpoints, but at the same time, you as a viewer understand that both views are very much so flawed. And that's something I really liked. I really, really got behind it because I remember the first time I saw this back in 2015. I liked it a lot, but I was looking at it just from Michael Douglas's viewpoint. And so I was, hating on Glenn Close's character. But watching it now, I'm like, they are both in the wrong. Like, Michael Douglas is not someone that his character is like, yeah, he's a good guy. It's like, no, he's not. Like, so it's a thrilling film, and I really like the buildup. I think the buildup is really, really good. I do have some issues with the third act. That's something that even when it came out, the studio acknowledged that it was something they never really were able to work out. And I will say that I'm not 100% about the third act, mostly because I think that, without spoiling anything, I think that the third act makes it so that way one of the characters is clearly in the right, and then the other character is clearly in the wrong. And again, I'm not going to sit here and say that the one character taking it too far was in the right. I'm not. What I'm saying is, I liked how for 2/3 of the film there was a gray complex to the morals, versus the third act, it's pretty cut and dry as to what the moral compass is. So, third act aside, I really like this film. I think it does hold up, and it is a thrilling potboiler film, and yeah, it's very much so worth your time. That's why it's my number 2. Next up, my number 1. This is what actually won Best Picture in 1987. My number 1 is The Last Emperor. So ironically, I watched The Last Emperor for the first time back in 2015, around the same time that I first saw Fatal Attraction. And I did rewatch The Last Emperor in preparation for this video, and I still quite like this film. I think that it is, yes, it's long, but it is a feast for the eyes. Like, the visuals are outstanding. The cinematography, the production design, the makeup, the filmmaking is just, it's immaculate. It's literally flawless. Do I feel the length sometimes? Yes. Does it take a little bit to get into the actual story? Yes. But at the same time, the ambition of this film is really, really interesting. And also, I love the historical aspect of this film, too. I see why it won Best Picture. I really do. And honestly, that's why it is my number 1. I am looking to possibly pick this up on the Criterion Blu-ray. Still on the fence, because I'm like, okay, it's on the Criterion Blu-ray. Does that mean it's going to get a 4K transfer at some point? Not sure. But as it stands, I really like this film. That's why it's my number 1. But yeah, 1987, interesting year for Academy Award Best Picture nominees. Let me know your ranking down in the comment section below. I'm very much so looking forward to that. And guys, as always, thank you very much for watching. With the subscription, notification bell, be on the lookout for 1988, and catch you guys later.